A very good morning to everyone who's watching this. My name is Shweta Adsul, and I'm a freshman and psychology major here at Michigan State University. And today with me is Miss Tammy Coles. Miss Coles, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever your time zone is. Because of the circumstances we're in, everybody's in different time zones. So I'm super excited to be here to work with Shweta on her project that's coming out of the Women's Leadership Institute. So, as she mentioned, my name is Tammy Coles, and I am proud to serve as the Associate Director in the Department of Student Life and the Division of Student Affairs and Services. I have been at Michigan State for almost 19 years, in higher education for almost 35 years. And no, I know I don't look it, but I have been, I assure you. And so I'm super excited about this project because I think it just is a very timely topic of discussion. So again, thank you very much for extending this opportunity. And I am very honored to have been selected by you. And I know you will prevail in this unique competition.
Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Coles. So, our topic for discussion today is pay equity, also called the gender wage gap that exists in an American workplace. So, whenever I came across the word wage gap, the first thing that came to my mind was that, okay, men and women doing the same job, working for the same amount of hours, are paid differently, which is, sort of like gender discrimination. But very recently, when I sort of looked into it, I realized that it's not just about equal pay for equal work, it is also about equal opportunity for equal potential. And on that note, I'd like to start by asking Ms. Coles my first question. So this statistics about how for every $1 a man makes, a woman makes 80 cents is a very popular statistics when it comes to wage gap. But it only reflects on how um, men and women have different wages when it comes to full-time work. Okay, and besides, it doesn't even reflect on the racial background of the woman, the age of the woman, demographic location, fields, and like many more other factors. So how important do you think it is for us to consider this intersectionality between these groups when we talk about the wage gap?
Well, as a Black woman who is also a mom, I cannot help but talk about and think about the intersectionality of the gender pay gap or the equal opportunity gap because of all of those intersectionalities that I possess. I am automatically going to be in many places and in many spaces not given opportunities that I am well entitled to. However, the other unique challenge is having grown up in a middle class circumstance, that gave me some privilege that other people that look like me did not have. And so it's a very unique balance when I consider the background, the educational background of my parents, my father having a PhD, my mother having a master's. I am a fourth generation college graduate. My son just graduated and he's a fifth generation college graduate. So there's a lot of privilege that comes along with that. So the
Right.
issue you talked about with the part about opportunity as well as pay equality is very near and dear to me. However, even though I have some of these privileged circumstances, I still had to endure some of the challenges that these intersectionalities that I possess caused me not to be able to get certain things or have access to certain things because it's very difficult to try and get a pay equity for something if you don't have access or opportunity to something. The
Mhm.
opportunity and the access comes first, and then you're able to get equal pay. But if you cannot get in the door, if you cannot sit at the table, if you cannot be invited or be extended an opportunity, it's very difficult to get equal pay. Um, so that is very interesting that you brought up that point, and it's definitely been something that I have personally experienced in many of the places that I have worked and or mentored other young women who have been working towards trying to, establish themselves in their professions and their careers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So there are there's a category of people who completely rejects the idea that a wage gap exists. They think that it's a total myth, and the statistics and reports around it, all of this is just an overly exaggerated and negative view of a woman in the workplace. What is your view about it? And like, do you think there is endemic sexism that prevails in the workplace, which is like holding women back?
What's interesting is everybody has an opportunity to give their perspective. That's what makes the world sort of go around. And so there are some people who do believe that we have, and when I say we, the professional community, regardless of profession, circumstance, or whatever, that we have done what is needed to provide the opportunity, the access, and ultimately the equal pay. But that I believe is the real myth. That has not been done. And so a lot of people may think that by looking, and what makes them think that, I think, is when they look around and they see women in high profile positions or they see women in high political circumstance. They say, you have one over here, you have one over here. Well, for every one or two that we may have in the high profile positions, we have other males in other positions. You have several of them. So even though we've made some strides, it still is not quite what it needs to be. So I absolutely feel that that is certainly um, not a true statement in terms of that not being the case. I think we have a long way to go to be able to reconcile those kinds of thought processes.
Um, so research suggests that a woman, when she is between 18 to 39 years of age, she, there's not much wage gap when a woman is in that age category. But when you go into your 40s, say when you become a mother or something like that, the wage gap drastically increases. So it's pretty evident that women are seen as like the primary caregivers of a family. So, what is your view about this motherhood penalty which women face? And do you think men also face that sort of a fatherhood penalty when they become fathers?
Well, what's interesting is that 18 to 39 corridor, a whole lot happens during that time. During that time, most women are working hard to elevate themselves in their career circumstance. They are perhaps seeking a partner, and maybe they have sought out a partner and actually have gotten married. And after they got married, they decided to have children, or maybe they decided to have children without a partner. There's a lot of things that happen to, really a lot that happens to everybody between 18 and 39. It's a very significant and transformative time in one's life. But for
Mhm.
many women, it is a very transformative time. And because of the way that biology works, I mean, certainly we've made advances in medicine and you can have kids at 50, but to be able to engage in that process, many times most women will engage in that process of motherhood between 18 and 39. And the thing about motherhood is you don't just have the child and then you it's like you're out. No, that's not how that works. You have children and then you have to nurture those children. And most of the time, even if you have a very supportive partner or an equal partner, it just doesn't always work that way in terms of these balanced kinds of circumstances. And a lot of times, in order to get these great opportunities, you have to move away from family who could support you in doing what you need to do. Now, my circumstance, again, when we're talking about, privilege in these kind of circumstances, I had a family who was very supportive of me. So when I had, high profile positions, or I had, or there were circumstances in my job where it was very challenging, and I might be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning and I might not come home until midnight. I was able to secure people that could support me when, because in higher ed there's a cadence to the way that the year goes. So at the beginning of the year, my parents would always come to where I was living in Kentucky, with my husband and my son. They would come and they would stay for an entire month when it was time for school to start. I didn't have to cook dinner. I didn't have to worry about being at home. They would actually, and I actually at that time worked about 20 minutes, about 30 minutes from my home. They would get up in the morning, make sure our son was taken care of, because at that time my spouse was a coach, and so he was out recruiting and doing. I mean, it was crazy. And they would actually get up in the morning. They would drive to where I was at lunch. We would all sit there and have lunch together, so my son wouldn't miss me during the day. They drive back. They do all these wonderful things so that I could start, because I've always been in positions where it was very heavy at the beginning of the year. And so I would work and do these kinds of things. And so the again, the sort of challenges and the things that some women are subjected to because they have to be primary caregivers, I had the privilege of not having to suffer all of those things. However, my parents lived out of state and they could not be there all the time. So, whenever we were in a circumstance where our child was sick, or somebody had to travel or whatever, most of the time I was the one who said, I'll stay home with our son, or because of the nature of certain jobs, sometimes you just have to split it up like that. And so I think it's very, very important to understand that being a mother, let me back up just a little bit. There's certainly this thought process that men make more than women. But when you start breaking those down to even further levels, like what is the capacity, the earning capacity of men versus women who have children, versus men and women who have children who have no partner supporting them. As you go down on those things that are circumstances that constrict on your ability to be able to be at work at long hours, all of those different things, that reduces your access sometimes, that reduces your opportunities sometimes, because you're just not able to be there to do these things. And people don't often, they feel like you can't do these things, and so they won't even extend you the opportunity, even if you have shown that you can balance all these crazy things that go on in our lives. And so it is, the motherhood penalty is a real thing, and even if you don't suffer the penalty monetarily, you absolutely suffer the penalty by being denied access to certain things. I don't know how many times I've been in different meetings or different places or talk with bosses or whatever, that they'll say, well, I know you don't want to do that because you have a young son, or I know you don't want to do something on Friday night because you like to go watch your son play football or whatever. You don't know my life. You don't know what I'm willing to do. But at the same time, I think it's very important that we as women do not sacrifice our families just to get ahead. I think it's the far greater thing is to be able to balance your life out, whatever that balance is. And sometimes the balance of life is much more valuable to you as a person, not as a female, not as a black woman, but as a person who wants to have a centered and sane life. Sometimes not taking something is sets you up for some success or an opportunity later on in life. And that's what I have found.
I'm so glad that your family was so supportive of you. And I mean, that's something we all want, don't we? Okay, so my last question to you for today is, Do you see America combating this issue of the wage gap in the near future anytime? And okay, if it does, we all know that change is gradual and it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow. So, what advice would you give women all around the world, women who are just going to enter the workplace, someone like me? What advice would you give us to navigate through this gender wage gap?
I think the first piece of advice I would say is, and I think it's a piece of advice my parents, either showed me or told me all the time, and they would say, never, ever, ever lose sight of who you are and yourself and your core values. Let that be the driving force of what you do and how you do. Now, if you're a person who values money, that's fine. That's all good because money does provide you some unique opportunities that you cannot have if you do not have financial resources. However, I would say to you, find something that you're very, very interested in and you're very passionate about, and something that you're not going to do this, but something that you would do if you didn't get paid for it. And if that is something, you find something that you would do if you didn't get paid for it, that is usually a good indication of what is going to fulfill you in your life. And so if you're able to find that, I think that that's the first and foremost thing that you need to try to do. The other thing is, a lot of times women, when they get their first job or they're negotiating their first job, they don't even think about all these tangible things that they bring to a company. They bring diverse thought, they bring unique experiences, they bring a gender perspective, they bring all these different things. And all of those things, even though they're not, you know, they're not valuable in terms of monetary things, but they are valuable that you bring to the table that can be transformed into a monetary sense of value. And so, as you negotiate your contracts with people, negotiate at the very highest level that you can. And a lot of people say, "Oh, well, that's so arrogant. That's so this." Well, you know what? Our counterparts are doing it. They're going in there as if they have a bachelor's degree. They're going in there like they have a PhD and 20 years experience, and they may have less experience than us or even less degrees than us. But the mindset that they go in there is that to the company, you're getting a very unique person when you get me, and that's going to cost you. And not that you want to be arrogant about it, you just want to lay on the table to this company or to this organization that as you bring in these talents, these gifts, and these credentials, you are going to infuse in that company a very strong, effective, efficient worker or employee that they might not get in another person. And so you just want to kindly and gingerly say, as you enter that place, that you have value, and that value in many spaces equates to money. Now, it doesn't always have to be money. It may be that they give you professional development funds, or they give you money to travel, or they give you research money, or they give you an expense account. It doesn't necessarily have to equate to money. It may be some tangible product that will then help you advance your career. So if you have a position where they're going to give you $50,000, but they're going to give you $1 million in research dollars, hey, that's a good deal. Because if you can research your way to another opportunity, that's fabulous. So I would say those would be the things that I would say. And the other thing I would say is, sometimes we take ourselves so seriously, and I think that being serious is very important. But I would say try as best you can to enjoy the professional ride. You always are, many times we have to sort of look over our shoulder, and we think people are out to get us, and sometimes candidly they are. But sometimes there are people that are really there to help us. And what's interesting is sometimes the people that can help advance us in our careers are people that don't even look like us. So I would definitely encourage people to get a mentor. And once you get a mentor, I would also encourage you to get other people, almost have like a board of directors or a circle of success or whatever you want to call it, your dream team of people that you surround yourself with that you can go to for different advice pieces in your life. You need to have somebody you can talk to about your finances, somebody you can talk to about parenting, somebody you can talk to about your relationships, somebody you can talk to about advancing your career. All these different things that sort of operate in the space that we call our life, we need to have people that can support us. And most important, you got to have somebody that has no problem and may hurt your feelings, but doesn't have any problems being candid with you and saying to you, I think you need to wait on this, or I think you should go on and take the risk on this. You don't always have to listen to them, but you want to have somebody that knows you really well, but also supports you, but doesn't have any problem, having you think about all of the aspects that go into different decisions as you make these decisions related to your professional life.
Mhm.
So that would be the advice I would give. That's a long answer, but that's what I would give if I could talk to my 18 or 19-year-old self.
All right, thank you so much. It was a lovely piece of advice, and thank you so much for being here with me today. It was so nice talking to you, and I think we're done for today. So have a great day.
Well,